And boom goes the dynamite.
Welcome back to another edition of the only live Monday through Friday lacrosse talk show. This is the Daily Dive. I'm your host, Michael Karvelis. I hope you guys had a great playoff weekend. I know I did. So with that, good morning to everyone on the West Coast and everyone on the East Coast. Good afternoon. It's time for lunch and some lacrosse talk. On today's show, our top story will be down went San Diego. What went wrong for the Seals in that game against Colorado? Our Fanatics segment will be give us what we want, and we got it. The Rock and the Bandits went on the collision course, and it all happened. We get what we wanted as fans. And last brew by B-Res Coffee Company, Code Daily Dive, Rochester and Panther City, their playoff debuts, what we learned and what the future holds for both teams. Our top story is presented by the Daily Dive store. Go on Daily Dive Lax via social media on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And check out the link tree where you'll see the Our Store tab. And there you can shop everything with this Daily Dive logo on it. Awesome shirts, hoodies, beanies. It's all right there. You got to have it. It's the best way to support the show as we grow the game. Our top story is down went San Diego. Boy, oh boy, did I not call this one. I told you guys it was going to happen. I told you. So I told you guys that the San Diego Seals this season have been inconsistent. Our host, Renee Washington, brought it up to me. And the more I thought about it, the more I watched them, the more I was like, yeah, this team's inconsistent. They can score 5 goals in a row, like most teams, but they could also give up a big run where they hope their goalie, Frank Giuliano, or Chris Origlieri, in the beginning of the season, they thought that maybe they could hold down the fort. And unfortunately, Colorado is a championship team. You can say what you want about how they shouldn't have been there last year, but they came into your barn in San Diego where Cooper Perkins was broadcasting, and they punched him in the mouth, ran up the score, and got the late penalty, and down went the Seals. This dates back to last week where I told you guys the scheduling conflict of the Bandits who beat the who they beat. I forgot. They beat the Firewolves, I believe, in week 22. And then they got the number 1 seed. And like 3 hours later, the Seals played, and they still played everybody. Like, why are you doing that? I know Andy Towers told us that, you want to have the camaraderie. I get all that. But you're so good, and yet your season was so mediocre, in my opinion. Like, I can't get down with the Seals right now. The San Diego Seals stacked the deck. They have this year's super team. You're the first super team in the National Lacrosse League history. I don't know. But they had this building up. And it always felt like the Seals were never the far and away favorites everyone expected them to be. If you really watch this sport like I did all year, you really learned the Seals were they were a top-tier team, but they weren't the top of that list of the top tier. They were like the second or third team over and over again. Like some weeks they look really good, but I never felt like they played a complete game. Even in games they won, I'm like, well, yeah, they're supposed to win those games, but nothing shocked me. Like they weren't doing anything super awesome. And I feel like you had to have felt that. And so when Colorado was like plus 165 on the money line, it was easy pickings for listeners here at the Daily Dive. It was easy for us to see that. The Mammoth have the championship pedigree. Seals did not have enough chemistry, and their goalie is not named Dylan Ward. That's what this came down to. What a thrilling finish by San Diego to fight back. But down went the Seals. One of the biggest upsets. But to me, it wasn't that big of an upset because I felt like Colorado, I felt like it was a scheduled Colorado win. They let the Mammoth hang around. They unextincted the Mammoth, if that's even the words, probably not. And this is the result. You lose. Now, another thing I want to get to in this first top story about the Seals is check their Instagram page where everyone's interacting with them. On their comments were like they lost, like they posted, oh, it was all fight. These moral victories, man, got to stop in this lacrosse, in this National Lacrosse League. Like, one of the things I love and hate at the same time about NBA and the NFL is the toxicity of fans. But I don't want to see, oh, we'll get them next year. That's not good enough. Like, I feel like there's not enough accountability being held for these guys. And again, I know these guys work the jobs. I've tried to harp that point all season long. But eventually it's like, how much do you want to be paid? How much do you want to be exposed to the public? Because right now this, oh, we'll get them next year, good job, shucks kind of deal, it's not doing it for me. It's not going to do it for every other fan when things start popping off in this league, like in terms of popularity. So it's great that we see that, the positive mentality, but this was a disappointment. This was a low-key failure. I think Maggie Hale said on our playoff preview, it would be a failure. You can't lose in the first round. And as for the Mammoth, they were defending champs. They didn't lose in the first round. They won. But on the road in San Diego, Seals were supposed to win that game. I don't care if it's do or die, one-game elimination. You have to win that game. They didn't. But, is what it is. All shucks, we'll get them next year. Come on. How dumb does that sound? It's nice to be proud of what you accomplished. And we'll get to two teams in the last segment who I thought should be proud of what they did, especially one of them. But down went the Seals. No one's clapping. All right. When I come back here on Daily Dive, hope you guys are tuning in on social media or YouTube. Please follow Daily Dive Lash and please subscribe to the YouTube. We're up to 41 subscribers. It's pretty good for we've only done one round of playoffs so far. When I come back, we got what we wanted. How the Toronto Rock and Buffalo Bandits were able to meet just like we thought they would. Daily Dive will be right back. Once again, we are talking the NLL playoffs. Welcome back to Daily Dive, the only live Monday through Friday lacrosse talk show. And we are presented by Fanatics. If you want the best in sports merchandise for any league, including the NLL, you've got to go to Daily Dive Live on social media, click the link tree, and then the Fanatics logo on that link tree. You'll see it. It's right there. It says, hey, click Fanatics. And when you do, and purchase something that helps out the show tremendously, thank you so much for that, obviously. I cannot wait for my National Lacrosse League scuba hoodie to come in. I will proudly wear that on the show. Woo, I cannot wait for that. And they actually had it in my size. Woo. All right. Fanatics, give us what we want, and we got it. Let's start off with the Toronto Rock. Of course, we know the Rock and the Bandits have been on this insane collision course it seems like this might be the NLL Finals. I'm kidding, no disrespect to anybody in the Western Conference that's left. But Toronto entered the game against Halifax. It was in Hamilton. I want to make sure I tell that because Latrell Harris corrected me. It is Hamilton. It's not Toronto. But they went into Hamilton, Ontario without Tom Schreiber. So all of a sudden, that money line started looking real cute, and yet I still wanted to pick the Rock. We had a clean 8-0 sweep. We had 4-0 on our picks, 4-0 on the bets for those that care. But Toronto really showed their defense. Latrell Harris got, I believe, one goal. I think he got only one goal. The defense of Toronto was really good. Toronto showed their balance of offense. There were times when you felt like the Halifax could have made a run, but really Toronto was just too good. I do want to give a major shout out to a guy who kind of plays, a little bit tough and dirty. He's a Stotts brother, of course he does. But Randy Stotts, who already was wearing a knee brace, like one of those leg cage things, and he went down when the game was getting out of reach late. And shout out to him. I mean, he's already an older player, and the fact that he already had that brace on, and then he went. I thought it was a cramp at first, but the next thing I know, I'm like, he hurt his knee. He had to have. And one of the best things that I've harped on all season about the NLL, which I'm being sarcastic about, is the fact that we don't know what these injuries are. Well, I don't care if a guy gets hurt at work, but if a guy tears his ACL or destroys his kneecap completely, I want to know that as a fan, so I can not only send my condolences and best wishes, but I can also know when to expect the guy back. Okay? It was clear that Randy Stotts had hurt his right leg, which is where that cage thing is on. So I hope that he's going to be okay, but obviously it did not look too great. He was able to limp off, which is technically walking off on your own power, although he was being carried by teammates. But shout Randy Stotts. He did what he could. Chris Boucher tried to make it cute late, but I just felt like Nick Rose and the Toronto Rock defense were impressive in this game. But I always felt like Toronto kept him at arm's length. You never really felt like the Rock were going to give this one up, and that's a credit to how good they are, even without Tom Schreiber. We actually were able to break that news on the show, so that was pretty fun for us. I wish Toronto would have had Tom Schreiber. It would have been even cooler. I don't know why Halifax pulled the goalie late. In a 2-goal game, that's how you can tell the Halifax Thunderbirds were just not ever in it, because they up 2 goals with 3 minutes left. Why are you pulling your goalie? That's all you have to make. Things can happen so fast in the NLL. You felt like it was a sense of desperation when they pulled Warren Hill. I thought Warren Hill was what kept the Thunderbirds in the game, actually. And then, of course, those 2 late goals were awesome. So, hey, shout out to the Thunderbirds. They had an up-and-down year, but they came on strong. They beat the Swarm to make the playoffs. And Toronto said, thanks for coming and have a great day. But I'm glad Thunderbirds kept it close. I believe that was the first game of the weekend. Yeah, that was. First game on Friday was Thunderbirds and the Rock. So good job. As for the Buffalo Bandits, the Buffalo Bandits hosted the Rochester Nighthawks, who I'll get to in the next segment. But Rochester, this game was almost boring. I know the final score indicates that. It was 20-8, and Bandits broke the record, a team record for most goal differential in a playoff game. The previous was +9. It was actually +12 in this game. I think it was Ty Murrow who had that stat. If he didn't, I'm sorry to whoever did. But great job of the Bandits. Dane Smith, to me, last few games I've seen him have been absolutely insane. It has been what I believe Dane Smith was the MVP this season. And again, against Toronto, I talked to Brendan Glasheen about this, how even when he would lose the ball early after missing a shot, he would hack and hack and hack and show his two-way prowess. Against the Firewolves, he had 4 or 5 more points. And then against this Rochester team, I feel like he was the one who broke it open. He kept on peppering that net, and I feel like Buffalo needed that. I feel like Josh Byrne kind of waited for Dane to get going. Kyle Buchanan was great from start to finish. Steve Priolo, seeing him break away on a fast break on a transition play was insane. He even fell down there. I love Steve Priolo. But Buffalo played a great game. Matt Vince was also incredible as well. But Rochester, it's so sad how far they fell from like the 7-0 mark that they started the season with. You can't fall that hard. And Rylan Hartley got benched, I think, 2 or 3 times in this game. I love Rylan Hartley. When he's on it, he's on it. But sometimes you wonder how good he actually is. Because Doris Burke said this great. I got this from a 2K video game, which is insane, an NBA 2K video game. She said, the good players are good every now and again. The best players are good night after night. And to me, Rylan Hartley is still stuck in the stage where he's good, sometimes great, but he's not great all the time. I also would have liked to see more from Connor Fields. Again, Bandits have a really good defense. I understand that. But Connor Fields needed to step up more. And I thought Dane Smith may have heard me talking about Connor Fields being the best player once upon a time. So, great job of the Bandits. They did not waste their time. One thing I'm concerned about, as I get to my point about this, about The Rock and the Bandits going, head-to-head. They've reached this point. We're going to get a 3rd and 4th, possibly a 5th installment of this thing. And I'm just excited to the fact that we get to see this again. Because to me, this feels like the NLL Cup. And no disrespect to Calgary in Colorado. But these two teams have been on a collision course, Toronto and Buffalo. And watching, of course, this game, I believe Toronto is in Buffalo this it's Friday. Yeah. So it's Friday. And of course, then the next day they're going to be in Toronto. So Friday, 7:30 Eastern, we get the game in Buffalo. I feel like the fans are going to be in full force. But really, I'm actually leaning towards picking Toronto in game 1. Here's the reason why. Tom Schreiber, if he's not injured, I'm hoping he's not. Again, we don't know these things. You don't need a reserve list, and we don't even know how long. But I feel like Buffalo used up a lot of energy running that score up. And I would not be surprised. I've got Bandits to win the series in 3 games. I believe that was my bracket challenge pick. If not, somebody else will get that for me. But I felt like the Bandits used a lot of energy. And I know Matt Vince sat down late, but to me, we'll have 3 minutes left in the game. So it feels like the Bandits are on a super big high right now. And Toronto's defense is a different animal than Rochester, obviously. So it's going to go all the way back down to here. I'm almost wondering if they score 7 goals the next game. Again, I still think Bandits win the series. But it seems very weird just how easily they took care of Rochester. I hope that their offense stays hot. Because, we got 7 days between games? Between game against Rochester, which you blew them out, and a game against Toronto. Totally 2 different matchups. It's going to be crazy. But I'm just happy that the fans are getting what they want. In a year that we've had ESPN Plus, in a year the NLL has grown, we've started this daily dive, which obviously I'm biased about that. The fans deserve this matchup. In boxing, sometimes you don't get the matchups you want. In the NBA, there's so much load management and injuries. This is the series the fans wanted, and we're getting it with Buffalo on Friday, at Toronto Saturday, and then, of course, the next game 3, if it matters, is going to be next Saturday. So this is going to be crazy. Also, there's a poll up on our Twitter page. And I knew this would be a conflicting hot take kind of poll. I said, are we good with the NLL playoffs back-to-back and then a week later schedule? Out of 9 votes so far, 56% say no, and 44% say yes. So I just want to know what you guys think about that. But as we know, all the marbles led to this point, and we get Toronto and Buffalo. It's going to be great. I think it's the 2 best teams left in the NLL. So that's just me right now. When I come back, Rochester and Panther City lost their games. But which one was more impressive? And which one has a brighter future moving forward? Rochester, Panther City, my reaction to their playoff debuts. Coming up next on Daily Dive. here on Daily Dive Lax via social media and also Daily Dive on YouTube. Please subscribe when you can. We're up to 41 big ones already. Last brew presented by B-Riz Coffee Company, code Daily Dive. It's coffee for gamers, by gamers, and of course, Daily Dive and lacrosse fans. It's a win-win. If you can't stay awake and coffee is good, but it's not good enough, you need the new flavors at B-Riz Coffee Company. That's B-R-E-Z, coffeeco.com. Code Daily Dive at checkout to help support the show. Their flavors are awesome, by the way. I meant to buy one this Friday. I didn't. So I'll see what I can do with buying some flavors and trying them on the show here. But it's our last brew, and that is Rochester and Panther City's playoff debuts. So first off, I want to get to Rochester. We already talked about how the Buffalo Bandits ran the score up. And I felt like this season was such a disappointment when you look at how Rochester started. Obviously, you want to stay focused. You want to say, "Oh, we're not thinking about it." But looking back now that you've gotten blown out in the first round by possibly the best team in the NLL, you have to wonder if you're like, okay, now that 7-0 start is what we're kind of thinking about it. Because to be fair, Rochester looked like they were for real. They looked like Hutton Jackson's bet, what was going to be like a book of prophecy, but it wasn't. And so we get a scenario where Connor Fields, of course, who came from Buffalo, who Buffalo fans wish that they still had on their team. And we get Rylan Hartley. These guys are both playing so well, and then nothing. And really, Rochester's got, Connor Fields. They got Holden Cotoni, who we interviewed. Ryan Smith, Thomas Hogarth, Curtis Knight. This team is stacked up. Matt Gilray, for crying out loud. Ryland Reese, Brad Gillies, bunch of names, Dan Coates, and yet nothing to show for it. It's sad because when I was a casual NLL fan to start, Rochester, I could not stand their uniform colors. I cannot stand that green. I know it's military, but good God, this thing is ugly to watch. I fell in love with the Ron Hartley play, and man, it just fell off so quickly. And it shows you that goalies matter so much in this league. But also, I don't know if I'm Rochester. Do I get a goalie? Or do I stick with Ron Hartley and add some more pieces around Connor Fields? Because this team is good, but they're not great right now. And to me, that's not good enough. I feel again, it felt like a boring game. As good as Buffalo was in that game, there was just nothing going on. There was no highlight reel plays besides Steve Briella, who's ageless wonder and gigantic and can't run, besides him on a transition goal. So something didn't feel right about this game. It felt like Rochester didn't really come to play. It was 3-0 Bandits after one quarter, and after that, Rochester, they got close, and after that, it was over. At halftime, I was like, man, this is boring. At halftime, I was more interested in the over 22.5, which got to 28, by the way, than I was the game, and that's not good enough to me. Rochester just kind of laid down. And I don't know if they did lay down, but it felt like they came into that fight knowing they had nothing left or nothing to give, and they were right. But to me, that can't happen. You have to show more fight than 28. I don't care how good Bandits are, okay? I'm sorry. As for Panther City is an interesting one. When you look at their roster, this team, I know Calgary owned them the last month of the season. Calgary beat them at Calgary. Then Panther City won at Vancouver. Then Panther City lost versus Calgary 13-12 after leading at halftime. And in this game, again, Panther City is leading late. And you feel like a team with Callum Crawford would be able to clean up the penalties. And to me, there was too many power plays for Calgary. Eventually you have to realize how the refs are calling the game. And I know you don't know that until the game finally gets going. But it's if they're not calling, if they're calling the slightly big cross checks, you have to understand that and adjust to it. I feel like Panther City really never adjusted to the game that the refs were calling, and it ended up in their downfall. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad season for Panther City or a bad game, because they were very competitive, But in the end, you get a Christian Del Bianco early, and I was tweeting out a bunch of MVP slander. You know I am. I felt like, it was never about Christian Del Bianco because they got him early. But after halftime, it felt like Calgary's defense, their team physicality stepped it up. If you watched the game and thought, oh, wow, Christian Del Bianco, then you just have a narrative you're trying to push this point. Because this game there was no special wow kind of, there was like a Tanner Cook one-hander, which I think is being overhyped. There was a Will Malcolm goal from behind, but nothing in this game really stood out to like, wow, what a save by Christian Del Bianco. It felt like it was more like Calgary's defense said, listen, second half we're going to come out there and be mean to these guys, and that's what they were. And Panther City got frustrated and couldn't handle it late. But look at the Panther City roster. This is insane. They've got Matthew Gauthier, who scored in this game. They've got Jonathan Donville. Both those guys are rookies, for crying out loud. Will Malcolm, Patrick Dodds, the legend Callum Crawford, Phil Caputo, Josh Medeiros, Tony Malcolm. This team is stacked up. And what's even more impressive, remember, Panther City announced before the game they had no injuries. Their only injury, technically, was their head coach could not make it. That was insane. He has some illness, I believe, going on, a non-COVID illness. And a defensive coach did a good job, but I felt like, I don't know, Panther City, I feel like they could have closed this one out. And if you look at the video on Instagram, they may have posted on Twitter too, but on Instagram for Panther City Lacrosse Club, they have this video called What's Next. Those guys look so devastated. Remember, Maggie Hale told us, she told us that Panther City wanted so bad to win the last game in Calgary, in Panther City, which they blew. The first game, they thought that they didn't bring any energy. The second game, they had Callum Crawford, and their energy is still lost. This game, God almighty, I can only imagine how disappointed those guys were. Because I feel like Panther City was the better team actually in that game. Yeah, Calgary flexed their muscles. But Panther City knew they had more talent than just, oh boy, we made the playoffs and that's it. This team could have went far, but those penalties show their lack of experience, and that, to me, was a downfall. Combined with the fact that Calgary's team defense, not goalie defense, but team defense, was the best part of the game for Calgary. Now, again, going back to this weekend, Calgary's got a hot date, and her name is Colorado. So have fun with that. We'll talk about that more the rest of this week. And we're going to try to have another playoff panel this week. I believe it's going to be on Wednesday. We're trying to schedule that. But I hope you guys enjoy the weekend. And I hope you guys are going to enjoy the rest of this week on Daily Dive leading up to Thursday's game for Colorado hosting Calgary. But remember, Calgary gets the games 2 and 3 at home. I feel like the Rock and the Mammoth are going to win game 1. That's the way I'm leaning for those of you that wonder. Because, again, we went 8-0 this past weekend, so we're feeling good. But I don't know, man. Something feels weird about Buffalo. If something feels like in Colorado, that's going to be a big problem for the Calgary Roughnecks. Maybe not. We'll see. But, hey, Colorado's going to be feeling pretty good. I know the Suns and Nuggets series just tied up at 2-2. But why not watch some lacrosse, you Colorado fans? You guys can smoke your weed, watch your Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets, and then watch lacrosse. Why not? Don't smoke, though. I'm kidding. Let me not get down that road. Thanks so much for watching this edition of Daily Dive. It's been fun. This year is still not over, of course. I love the NLL. And I want to get to this point, my last point, is that I feel like I'm beginning to like this league as my favorite league. Maybe it's because I'm invested into it. I feel like I'm like really into it this year with the show I do. But I really love the NLL, and I want you guys to know that. Because this thing is awesome. Like, there is so much. I think Tyson Geek on Twitter, I think it's Geek, G-E-I-C-K, I think is the way you spell out the guy's name. He's a very famous lacrosse guy. And he was saying, this is better than the NHL playoffs. So forget the NBA playoffs. This guy's saying NLL is better than NHL, and I agree. I love this sport. I love this league. I really hope that these fans continue to latch on to this thing. I saw a lot of good positive vibes. Maybe that's why the fans are not, crucifying the teams yet. But maybe that's why they're so optimistic, because it's their first time watching. And I get that. But I cannot wait to see what the rest of the season holds, and we're not done with this week either. So everyone that comes on the show, they are great guests. You guys, the fans, those people behind the scenes. I am Al Karvelis. This has been Daily Dive, and you guys have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye.